Imagine dying in front of nearly 40 people, not quietly, not unnoticed, but in plain view, on a well-traveled path, while person after person walks past you and keeps going. This isn't a thought experiment. It happened in 2006, near the summit of the tallest mountain on Earth. And what happened that day still gets argued about, in mountaineering circles and psychology classrooms alike, almost 20 years later. So how do dozens of people walk past a dying man, one after another, and keep climbing? On May 15, 2006, a British mountaineer named David Sharp was found in a small rock shelter on Everest's northeast ridge, roughly 350 vertical meters below the summit, an area climbers grimly call the death zone. He was severely frostbitten, barely conscious, and unable to stand even with help. He was climbing without a Sherpa and with minimal supplemental oxygen, attempting the summit largely alone. Over the following hours, more than 30 climbers passed his position. Some later admitted they saw him. A few even stopped briefly. But no rescue was mounted, and Sharp died there that day. When the story became public, the outrage was immediate and international. Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man to ever summit Everest, publicly condemned what had happened, saying that reaching the top had become more important to people than human life itself. But the more useful question isn't who's to blame, it's what makes otherwise decent people capable of this. Part of the answer traces back to a much older piece of research, conducted by psychologists John Darley and Bib Latane in the late 1960s, after the widely publicized murder of Kitty Genovese, a case where numerous witnesses reportedly failed to intervene. Darley and Latane's experiments revealed something called the bystander effect. As the number of people present at an emergency increases, the likelihood that any single person will act actually decreases. Each individual assumes someone else, someone more qualified, more prepared, closer, will step in instead. Responsibility doesn't disappear. It just gets quietly divided into pieces too small for anyone to feel. On Everest that day, that effect wasn't theoretical. It was compounded by something even more extreme. A high-altitude physician named Peter Hackett has spent decades studying exactly what oxygen deprivation does to the brain above 8,000 meters. Hackett's research shows that in the death zone, cognitive function doesn't just slow down. It becomes measurably impaired, affecting judgment, memory, and crucially, the ability to process complex moral decisions in real time. Climbers in that environment are often functioning with a fraction of their normal reasoning capacity, exhausted, hypoxic, and singularly focused on the one goal that got them there in the first place. This connects to a concept psychologist Albert Bandura called moral disengagement, the mental process by which people convince themselves, often unconsciously, that a troubling action or inaction doesn't reflect who they really are. On Everest, many climbers reasoned that Sharp was beyond saving, that attempting a rescue in the death zone would likely cost their own life too, without changing his outcome. Whether or not that reasoning was accurate in every case, it was consistent, repeated independently by person after person, exhausted and struggling for oxygen themselves. None of this excuses what happened, but it explains something uncomfortable about how easily individual responsibility dissolves inside a crowd, especially a crowd under extreme physical and psychological strain. You'll likely never face a life or death decision at 28,000 feet, but the bystander effect doesn't require a mountain. It shows up any time responsibility is diffused across enough people, an accident on a busy street, a person in visible distress in a crowded space, a problem everyone assumes someone else is already handling. The uncomfortable truth Everest revealed wasn't really about mountaineers. It was about what happens to ordinary human responsibility once it's divided by a large enough number. So the next time you find yourself in a crowd, watching something happen, and quietly assuming someone else will step in, remember what happened near the summit of Everest in 2006. Sometimes you are the someone else.